So if you are in South Africa, I'm sure you've noticed on LinkedIn that there are a lot of C Sharp jobs, and they pay quite a lot of money. So I thought it would be really cool if I made a video on C Sharp, just a small tutorial building a simple C Sharp web API. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open Visual Studio. Oh, it's gonna open on the wrong window. Oh, cool. Yep. And I'm gonna create a new project, and make sure you have .NET Core installed. And yeah, so select the ASP.NET Web Core application, go to next, and let's just call, excuse me, I'm gonna call this simple API. Or you know what, let's call it a simple Twitter API. Twitter API. Cool. So yeah, and then just hit create. So what I want to do is I want to have a user model and a Twitter model, and then each tweet will belong to a user. Yeah, so select .NET Core 3.1. I know there's like .NET Core 5. Yeah, I think there's .NET Core 5, but I don't have that installed, so I'm just gonna go with this, and then I'll make sure that you select API here, and just hit create, and it'll create a project for you. Now I'm gonna use best practices. To be precise, I'm gonna be using the repository pattern, not now. So essentially what I want to do is I want to decouple my projects. I want to have one project that will just focus on connecting to the database. So I'm gonna call that the data access layer, and I'm gonna have another project that's gonna do the calculations, whatever calculations, your business logic and all that, and I'm gonna call that the services layer. And then I'm just gonna have this one here that I already have, that will have your routes under the controllers. Cool. So I'm gonna create another project. I'm just gonna go here, create another project. So go to add new project, and then just make sure that you select a class library, a C# one. Go to next, and let's call this data access. So I know that most of you are used to having your models under this project here. So you have your and then you have your business logic under controllers. That is not good at all. So in this lecture or tutorial, I'm going to show you how to decouple your projects and have just each project focus on one thing. So that's solid principles, right? So I'm gonna delete this class here, and I'm gonna create another project and call it services. Yeah, create a project. So this is just gonna be the service layer. Services. Yeah, so other people may name this like in a different way. I know that some have an infrastructure layer and a business logic layer, but yeah, they're basically the same thing. It depends on how you name this project. So this is like the base project, and you have all these services. Yeah, and then this project will whenever so this part of the project will reference this project as well as this project here. So let's start with the data access. Okay, 4 minutes already. Yeah, so we're gonna need a models folder, models, and we're gonna need a model here. Let's call this a, so we add a class. Let's call this a person, and another one called tweet. Yeah, and don't forget to make this public here, and then each person will have an ID, which is going to be an integer, and a string. Let's just call this a name. So I'm just going to keep it simple like this, and a tweet public. So a tweet will also have an ID as well, and it will belong to a user. So virtual, I mean, it will belong to a person. Space bar, person. So basically what I'm saying here is each tweet will have to be linked to a user, to a person. And then once you've done this, you need a reference key, so a foreign key. And because we're using entity framework, it will know that this person ID is a foreign key to this person here. And then another thing is we need a string text, which is gonna be the tweet itself. Right, cool. So we have the person, we've got the tweet. Now we need a DB context. So I'm just gonna create it under the data access project, but not in the models folder. Some people like to create it in here, but I just like it to keep it separate. Yeah, I think just to make it more visible. So let me just call this tweet context. Cool. Right. So and it has to be public, and also it has to inherit from DB context. Now, oh man. Now C# won't know what this is because we haven't imported it yet, but still we can't import it. You see, we can't import it because we need to install a NuGet package. So what we need to do is we're gonna have to right click here, right click data access, the project, go to manage NuGet packages, and go to browse, and we need to search for .NET Core framework. So let's entity framework. Let me search this. Yeah, we need to search for entity framework core, and I'm gonna install this version here. Cool. And we have to accept everything. Right, and also we need this here, entity framework core tools, and again I'm gonna install the same version as I had before. What else do I need? I need SQL. Yeah, I need SQL. DB. Yep. And I need SQL Server. And I'm gonna install this version again. Now these are installed under this project here. So yeah, I'm done with this. So this is what I have. These are the packages that I have. Now I can come back here under tweet context, And then if I hover and go to show potential fixes, you see now we can import or write this using statement here, because we've installed Entity Framework code to this project here. Right, cool. Now we need a constructor. So CTAR tap, it's a shortcut. Yeah. Cool. And inside here, first of all, we need to call the constructor of this here. And we need, what do we call this? Is it a DB context options? DB, yeah, context options. Hey guys, I bought a new keyboard, manje. I'm still getting used to it. And then these are options here, and then we need to pass these options to the constructor of DB context. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we need to create tables for our entities, which are our models here. So go to public. We need to type public db set and person, and we need to write it in plural here, people, and we need to get and set. Now it doesn't know what person is, because we need to import. I'm gonna use the import a lot because I am used to writing JavaScript and we import a lot there. So in C# it's called using, yeah, but I'm basically importing whatever is under this folder here in this project. Cool. And then public, we need to do the same thing for the tweet. So we call it tweet and tweets. Right, cool. So now what's gonna happen is when we run our migration, Entity Framework is gonna come to this class here, and it's gonna read this, and it will know that, okay, I need to create tables in a database for these classes. So it'll convert this to a table, and it'll add these fields to the table, ID and name. And then again, it'll do the same thing for this class here. It'll convert it, it'll create a table for it, and it'll call it tweets, and it will add these fields. It'll add ID, and it'll add person ID as a foreign key. Because of this, it'll know that this is a foreign key, and it'll also add another field for text, and it will handle the data types. That's how Entity Framework is. It's just that powerful. Right, cool. I think we are done with this here. Right, so now let's come to the services. So what this will do is it will access data using this context here, and then this project or the controller in here will get the information from the services. I know I'm not explaining that very well, but you'll see it as I do it. So I'm going to create a folder here. I'm going to call this interfaces, and this will just keep our interfaces. And then I'm going to create another folder here. I'm not going to call it services because I already called this project services. Let me just call it this business. Yeah, let me call this business or logic. Man. I think we repositories, repos for repositories. Yeah, so an interface is it is a blueprint of let me just Google this. Let me just show you a proper definition. What is it here? Exactly, this is what an interface is. So if a class is in a contract with a certain interface, it has to define the functions that the interface has. So an example is this. So let's add a person interface. Let me call this interface, and I'm going to control it all, and you need to say I person. So in C#, you need to start your interfaces with an I, and again you need to make this public, and we have a task because I want this to run asynchronously. So it's gonna be task, or let me just make it really simple at first. So each and every class that's gonna be in a contract with this interface will have to have this function, a function called add person, like this. And add person will have a return type of a person, right? It can be an integer, it can be anything, but in this case, this particular function, after adding the person, this function needs to return the person back to the client, and it will complain here because it doesn't know what person is. So now we don't have a we can't use a using statement because this project doesn't reference this project here. So we need to come here, right click under services and add reference, and select data access and press OK. Once you're done with that, if you come back here to person interface, show potential fixes, now we can use the using statement because there's a reference. Cool. So we have this interface. Now we need to add a person repo. So it's gonna be a class now, not an interface. Person repo. So it's just a person repository. I'm gonna call it repo. Because it's a bit shorter. Now we want this person repo to be in a contract with this interface here. So the way you do that is you use this here and you say I person, and again it's gonna complain because it doesn't know, this class doesn't know what I person is. So we need to show potential fixes and click the using statement. Now it's complaining because we don't have the add person function in here. So this is what I was explaining earlier on, that whenever you are inheriting from this interface here, you need to define this function. So iPerson does not have this body, the body for this function. All it needs is whatever class is gonna be in a contract with it has to give this function a body, right? So we need to create this function here, and it has to return a type of person. So let's public person, add person. Right, now we need to use a using statement again, and you see it's no more complaining now. Cool. So when we're adding someone or we're adding a person, we need the person object, obviously. So again, we're gonna take a person here, and we're just gonna call it this variable. This variable we're just gonna call person, and now again it's complaining because we are not passing the argument here. So again, we need to pass the person argument here. Then we need to add this person to the database. So remember that we need to use the tweet context to add the person to the database, and the way that we're gonna access that is we're gonna inject it. So I'm gonna need private tweet, and I'm gonna call this let's just call this context, and we need a constructor. Let's see, I'm gonna use this shortcut here, and into this constructor we're gonna inject a tweet context as well. And then once this class has been initialized, we're gonna say this context here that we defined at the top is gonna be equals to the context that get injected here. And then this has to be private read only, and we have to import tweet context. Now you see that we are able to import from data access because we referenced it. Okay, so why are we getting an error? Context does not exist. We do have it. What? Okay, let me show potential fixes. It needs to be a read-only property. I don't know what changed, but yeah, now that's working. We need to say context dot people. We have this people dot add person. Then we have to say context dot save changes, and then we have to return the person. That's it. Right, now we have defined a person repository. Now we need to use this repository in our controllers. So usually we would write all this logic under the controllers. Now this is bad practice. We need to decouple our projects. So I'm gonna go to, now I'm under this project here. Let me just close these two so that you guys are not confused. I'm under the main projects, the project that we started with when I created the project. Yeah, so I'm under controllers. I'm gonna go to add a controller, and I'm gonna add a API controller. I'm gonna add an empty one. and I'm gonna call this person. Right. So it's generating some code. Right, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to create a controller, a constructor. ctar tab. Okay, cool. And then I wanna in here. Right, so this is where I'm gonna introduce you guys to dependency injection now. So we wanna use the Person Repo, but I'm not gonna create. I'm not gonna use it directly. I'm gonna use the interface instead, and Entity Framework will know how to handle everything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here to Startup, and I'm gonna scroll down to Configure. Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna go to Services. Where is it? Oh, yeah. I'm gonna come here to Services, and I'm gonna say Services dot add scoped. Now we can add a singleton. We can add a scope. I'm gonna use this for this tutorial. And here, what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna say this interface here. If I call iPerson, please use Person Repo as the class that has the implementation of the functions inside iPerson. Right. So this is basically what this is gonna do. So this is dependency injection, and this is so powerful because in future, if we want to replace the implementation of this interface here, we can just come here and switch this to a different class, like a different implementation, and every part of the project that uses this interface will change as well. So we won't have to change it in different places. We'll just have to change it in one place, which is pretty damn good if you ask me. Now it's complaining because it doesn't know what iPerson is and Person Repo is, and you'll remember that this class only has a reference to data access, if I remember correctly. Right, so we need to add a reference to services. Oh, it doesn't have a reference to either of the projects. Yeah, so for now I'm just going to add a reference to services, and I'm going to come back here. Now we should be able to use the using statement. So I'm importing that, and I'm importing this as well. Right, cool. Now if you come back here, I am able to now say give me iPerson, and I'm just gonna call this I'm gonna call this Person and I'm gonna say Person is equals to Person. So the reason why I'm doing this is I know that Visual Studio is going to generate this for me. Okay, it's not generating it. So I'm going to have to say private read only. private read only. Right, so we need to again import this. Now notice that we are only using the interface. Here it is here. We're only using the interface and not the actual repository. And again, Entity Framework will know that if I'm using this interface here, the definition of whatever function I'm gonna call is found here under Person Repo, because we did this here. Say iPerson, here's the definition here. Right, cool. So let me create a function to add a person. So I'm gonna say public, and I'm gonna call I'm gonna say action result. And this action results will return a person, and I'm gonna call this add person, and it's gonna take a person as an argument, and the variable is gonna be person. And then now we are calling person from data access here, and we don't have a reference to that project. Oh, we do. Yeah, we do. Sorry. So we just imported, and it's going to complain because we're not returning anything yet. So now, because we have this person here, we can use it now. I'm just going to say return. Okay, how do I explain this? This function here, okay, let me just say return, and this will return okay, which is a status code of 200, and I'm gonna return whatever add person will return. So I'm adding a person inside. So let me just explain what I did here. So this function here will return an HTTP status function, right? And whatever is inside here is what's gonna get sent to the client. And I'm using iPerson dot add person to add a person, and then have the response sent to the client. Or you know what, let me do this, because this can be a bit confusing if I do it this way. Right, so I'm just gonna say var results is equals to this here. So if I call add person, which is this, it's gonna take the person. You see, I'm passing whatever's gonna come from the client here, goes here, gets added, and it gets saved to the database, and then gets returned back to here. And then I'm gonna take this and return it back to the client. So I'm gonna pass results here, right? So we are missing only one step now, and that is our connection string. So it is here. So we need to add a connection string, and what am I gonna call this? Okay, first let's go here to startup, and we need to set a connection string. Right, so I am gonna edit here. So we need to say services dot add context. We need to add a context. So our context is tweet context, right? So type is going to be tweet context, and then we need to import tweet context, and then we need to pass our options here. So I'm just gonna call this options. It's gonna be lambda, and we're gonna say option dot. Now we need to use SQL server. Now if you go back to when the video started, you'll see that I added SQL server tools. I added SQL server. So we need to use SQL. We need to use SQL server, and we need to pass the configurations. So we need to say con sorry about that, guys. Someone was at the door. So you need to say configuration dot get connection string. Get connection string, and I'm gonna just call this tweets. Right. So we need to again use entity framework core. Alright, cool. So now we need to create this connection string here called tweets, and we need to create that under app settings.json. So connection strings, right, and we need to, what did we call that? We called that tweets, and it's gonna be this. Now I'm gonna copy my local thingy here, my local connection string, and I'm gonna paste it here. So you need to have Microsoft SQL Server installed in order to get this to work here, or I think Visual Studio has one, comes with that installed. I'm not sure, but I have a separate app, a separate software for SQL Server, and you might have to install one as well. Right, so the name of our database, I'm going to call this tweetsdb. Right, I'm going to save, and then I need to save this as well. Make sure that you save everything. Now once we are done with that, we need to run our add a migration and run it. But first I want to open my SQL server. Where is it? Yeah, it is here. So it's opening. It's opening on the wrong screen. Right, so how do I bring, right, so I'm just gonna connect here, and again it's in the wrong screen. So yeah, it is here. So I'm sorry guys if that's too loud. Yep. So these are the databases that I have. So as soon as I run my migration, I should have a database called tweets. As you can see, this is what we have here. I have a database called tweetsdb. Right, cool. So I'm gonna come here to package manager, and I'm gonna switch to the data access project, because that's the one that has the tables, that's the one that has the context, the context. Yeah, and then I'm gonna add migration, and I'm gonna call it init. I'm gonna hit enter. And it's saying our main project needs to have framework core tools. Okay, so we need to install this package here to our main project. Package, okay, it's this one actually, code design. Okay, so I'm gonna click the main project, right click, go to manage NuGet packages, go to browse, and I'm gonna say MDT framework, and we need the design one with yeah, it is here. I'm gonna install this version, click install, click accept. Right, cool. So come back here, let me close this, come back here and run this command again. Let me pour myself a glass of sparkling water. Don't forget guys, it's important to always stay hydrated, especially as developers. We code for long hours, and we sometimes forget to drink water. Yeah, so now we have we've added our migration, and you'll notice here that this folder has been added to our data access layer. Now at this stage you won't see any database added until we run the update database command here. So update database, excuse me, and it is done. So if I come back here and refresh, we should see the tweets DB. Yeah, it is here. And if I open here, go to tables, you'll notice that we have the tweets and we have the people tables, just the way we define them here. So well done, Entity Framework. Yeah, so now we need to test this route here. So one important thing is we need to set this as an HTTP post route. Yeah, so to get to this route here, we'll have to go to API and /controller, meaning it's going to be person, and then we need to set the method to post, and automatically it's going to come here, and then it's going to take this person object, it's going to pass it to this function here, it's going to get the result of this function and put it here, and this will be returned to the client. So I'm going to use Postman to test this API Let me open Postman. Where is it? Is it not open? Okay, it's not open. Let me open it here. And I'm gonna bring it over to the screen. Just one sec. Right, cool. So while that is opening, let me show you what's inside. So if I go to people, edit top 200, you'll see that this table is empty. There's nothing inside here. If it wants to load, yeah, you see, we've got nothing. Now dismiss. I'm gonna run this project and I'm gonna attempt to add a person. But first, let me put a breakpoint here so that you guys will actually see what's happening. Yeah, let me put a breakpoint here. So this is running on localhost 44. Let me just copy it here. So it's running here. Right, so this is just the default. If you go to this file where the focused here, it's just returning this stuff here. But what we want to do is we want to add a person. So I'm gonna control and copy this, and it's API/person, and it has to be a post function, and I need to come here to body, and let me remove all this. Now remember that a person takes a name and an ID, but we won't be passing an ID because Entity Framework will generate that for us, or I mean the SQL server will generate it for us. So we're only going to be passing a name. Now with JSON, you see this is a capital letter N. When you're sending in JSON, it's always in camel case, so it's going to be small letter N. Name, and I'm going to pass in Siviwe Kagaza. And as soon as I hit send, it will come here because I put a breakpoint, and you see that the person object is passed and the name is Siviwe Kagaza, and I want to do a step into step over. It's gonna come here. It's gonna right now results is null, so because it hasn't gone into this function yet, and I hope it goes inside. You did not see that part, but it went inside and added the person to the database and saved, and then it took the results, the person, and put it in here. So if I hover here, I should see a person object, you see, and now the ID is 1. Remember here it was 0 when it came in, it was 0, but now it's 1 because it has been added to the database and SQL Server has given it an ID of 1. So it's returning this to Postman to the client. So I should get back a person object with an ID of 1 and a name of Siviwe Kagaza. If I press continue, and you see I get a status of 200 because of that OK here, and I get this object here. Now if I go back to SQL Server, we had nothing here, but if I do this again, is happening? Okay, let me do that again. Now we have severe colors. Right, so we need to add a tweet now, and it has to be assigned to me. Let us add a go back here to services. Let's add an iTweet service here. So I'm only gonna do let's add an interface. I'm only gonna do the adding. I'm not gonna do deletes, updates, and what else? Yeah, and read. I'm gonna do those in the next upcoming videos because of time. Like this has taken, it's almost an hour now, so yeah, I need to wrap this up. So I'm gonna call this iTweet, and I need to make it public, and I need a function that will return a tweet, and I'm gonna call this a add tweet, and it's gonna take a tweet as an argument, and we need to import stuff, and I need a tweet res repository, so I'm gonna call this tweet repo, and it has to be public as well, and it has to from iTweet, and again we need to import iTweet, and we need to implement its functions. Right, cool. And also we need a constructor for this, so I'm gonna ctrl and press tab twice, and we need our tweet context, and context, and I'm gonna say context is equals to this context here, and I'm gonna let Visual Studio generate this for me, and then I'm gonna say context dot tweets. Where the hell is that now? Oh, doesn't know what tweet context is, so I need to import from. Why is it complaining? Okay, now I need to call the context, and I need to call the tweets table, context dot tweets, what the hell is happening? Guys, I don't know what's wrong today. Yeah, now we need to call the tweets table, and we need to add to that table, we add in the tweet, right? And after that we need to save save changes, and then we need to return the tweet. Cool stuff. Now we need to add our tweet controller. Add controller, and we're just gonna call this tweet. Have a sip of sparkling water. is so refreshing. Now we need to create a function which will have an action result, and we are gonna get back a tweet object, and the function is gonna be called add tweet, and it's gonna take a tweet object as a parameter or as an argument. I don't know what the difference is, don't judge me. Yeah, and then we need to import this tweet here from models, and then again we're gonna have results gonna be equal to we need a constructor, and then we need to use this iTweet interface. But before we do that, we need to do this magic here. We need to say services dot add scoped, and say whenever we call for iTweet, please use this tweet repo as an implementation. Save that. Man, tweet repo, yeah, and save. Now here we're gonna call iTweet, and I'm gonna call this tweet, and I'm gonna say tweet is equals to the tweet that's in the constructor. And I'm gonna let Visual Studio generate this for me, and we need to import iTweet, and then we're gonna say result is gonna be whatever is returned by add tweet, and we're gonna pass this tweet here. So this one is this, and then we're going to return okay, and we're gonna pass results. Right, so before I test this, I just want to say that this is not the correct way of doing it. We're not checking if these exist or if they are null, and also we're not using a try catch here. So this is just very basic at the moment. Like my focus was really on demonstrating the repository pattern. So yeah, let's run this now. So in order to access this, we're gonna go to API/tweet, and we need to set this as an HTTP post. HTTP post. Cool. Now a tweet is expecting a person ID and a text. We're not gonna pass these here. SQL Server will handle that. Now remember that let me add another person before I add a tweet. Just wanna show you something. Right, so let me add a John Doe. No, let's add Superman, and I'm gonna post, and I'm just gonna press continue, breakpoint here. Now the ID is 2 for Superman. Now let's add a tweet. And a tweet is expecting a text and a person ID. Now remember it has to be camel case, so it's going to be person ID, person ID is an int, so 1, so that's Siviwe Qhaza, and it's also expecting a text, and I'm gonna say, hey, this is my first tweet, and I'm gonna press send, and I get a 200, and I'm also getting this here. Now I want to do something real quick. Okay, let me add another one. Send, and let's add a tweet by Superman. Call this hooray. And it's been added here. Now I think I might have some time to get a list of all tweets here. So first thing, we need to come to this interface, and we need to define a list, a function that will return a list of tweets. So now if you come here to tweet repo, you'll see that now we should have an error because we're missing one function, and I'm just gonna implement that here, and I'm gonna return context dot tweets dot to list. Now we need to import dot to list from link, right? So we're getting every tweet and we are converting those to a list. Now we can come here to tweets controller, and we can define a function that's going to be an HTTP GET this time, and it's going to be an action result, public action result, and it's going to return a list of tweets, and I'm just going to call this get all, and it's going to return, okay, let me just keep convention, var results, which are the tweets, equals to tweet dot get tweet, you see, and we're gonna return okay, and we're gonna pass results in here, and we're gonna save, and let's run this again. What time is it? Damn, I need to go to bed now. I really need to go to bed. Let us wait for this to run. Cool. So now if I come here to tweet, notice I'm not gonna change the URL. I'm just gonna change the method. So it's gonna be now get, and if I hit send, now you see that I am getting a list of tweets. I am not sure why I'm getting a null here, but I think that might be because, let me check. I'm not sure, maybe I need to fetch the data asynchronously or something. I'm not sure. I am not sure, but at least this gets added in, and we can always reference the person using the ID. So let's come here to entity framework, go back to tweets and edit. Now you see that we've got these tweets here. and I want to show you something. I'll go to design. How is this designed? Tweets table. Not sure where this is, but yeah, I will figure this out, and then in the next video we will try to fix these nulls here. I'm pretty sure we need to do this when we need to add asynchronously in order to achieve getting the entire person object saved here and not just the ID of the person. And yeah, that is how you build an ASP.NET Core web API using the repository pattern. And I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. Cheers.